evening and welcome to ELOSOFUMARTAKES. This is our 297th take, live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star Studio of Azle, Texas. I'm your host, Barry Duplessis, as always, and I'm so proud, so pleased, and so privileged to be with you all tonight. This is going to be a fantastic show. We're welcoming back one of our favorites here on the show, and he's always got a fantastic opinion or two and great insights to share. He's one of my favorite people in the business, and I know I say that a lot, but I actually mean it a lot too. So, and I definitely mean it in this gentleman's case. But before we get to formal introductions of the guest of honor, we do have to thank the people that make this show possible. And that, of course, is our sponsor. And tonight's show is sponsored by Drew Estate. Drew Estate is doing it once again by bringing you some of the very best products to market. They have some of the very most fun limited editions available come to market, as well as some of the newest arrivals, including the blackened cigars, and as well as other opportunities, other selections as well. As I get my words together, one of the things that I'm really excited about is the annual release of the 2024 Pancetta, exclusively for the New Jersey Cigar Festival. Drew Estate announced the return of the highly anticipated Liga Privada Unico Series Pancetta, scheduled to debut at the New Jersey Cigar Festival this year. So the pre-sale starts, actually just a few days ago, and the box price is set for about $150, $14.99 per cigar. But the exclusive release continues the tradition of excellence cherished by cigar aficionados. Initially launched as a highly sought-after exclusive Liga Privada Unico Series, Pancetta is available only through the Wooden Indian Tobacco Shop in Havertown, Pennsylvania, Balck Cigars in Union, New Jersey. The limited edition cigar has become a staple for collectors and enthusiasts seeking unique and complex smoking experiences. Highlighting this year's release, Drew Estate excited to introduce the Liga Privada Unico Series Pancetta is a new 10-count box offering a refined packaging choice that enhances the cigar's prestigious presentation. So check out Barrister Cigars of Union, New Jersey, or Wooden Indian Tobacco Shop, of course, of Havertown, Pennsylvania, for your exclusive Pancetta today. And welcome, everybody. This is our 297th take. If you are listening to us wherever you listen to broadcasts, whether that be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, or wherever you listen to podcasts, we are listening to us courtesy of Gran Habano Cigars. Gran Habano is honest, compassionate, great cigars. Be sure you download, subscribe, and review today, courtesy of Gran Habano Cigars. And tonight's guest is sponsored by United Cigars. Smoke one today and start living united. Mr. Hector Alfonso of Espinosa Cigars. Hector, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good, Bear. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for joining us, Hector. It's always a pleasure. It's been a while. Yeah, go ahead.
You can hear me fine?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, good, cool. All right. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, it's been a while since I think I've had you on the show just by yourself.
I think it's probably been more than a year since I've been on, but I know I think we were on the last baseball show together, but that's probably been about a year as well. So it's it's been a minute. Yeah.
Well, you were on the anniversary show with me, but we also had Tim as well. But like I said, solo, I think it's been a good long time. So yeah,
it's been a while.
So exciting. Well, I want to kind of tease the audience because I know we've talked about the show, and it is going to happen. We are going to do the biggest snubs in Hall of Fame in the Baseball Hall of Fame history. But I mean, the Baseball Hall of Fame was today, so it's kind of fitting. I wish I could say I planned this and I wanted you on this show because I knew that the Hall of Fame enshrinement was today for Major League Baseball and Cooper.
Had you not said anything, people would not have known. Let's just go with that.
I just like being transparent and honest. I mean, what can I say? It's a fault. So
I got you.
It's a flaw. But I mean, do you watch it every year? I mean, I really enjoy it. Typically,
I stopped watching it after Harold Baines got in the Hall of Fame.
Really? Okay.
I'm sorry. Listen, I hate to say this because it you know how much it pains me, but Loomis is right. It's become the Hall of pretty good. It's the Hall of pretty good. And the problem is that you can't purge the guys in the Hall of Fame. Right. If you look, and you're kind of a historian, you look at some of the things that were done, how they run the Hall of Fame, the years that they didn't put anybody in the Hall of Fame. which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
The bias with the writers in New York and the writers of Boston against each other's players. The Veterans Committee, you know, Dick Farrell, was it Wes Farrell? Dick Farrell? I can't. That guys that are in the Hall of Fame that have no business being in the Hall of Fame. Bill Mazeroski, Wes Farrell, I think is Wes or Rick. It's
Yeah.
one of the two. But and what are you going to do? I mean, and then by the time every year, a new class comes out, a new bunch of new guys retire, and these
I was gonna
guys,
say it starts the arguments all over
it
again.
starts the arguments all over again. I mean, Todd Helton, all right, listen, Larry Walker, Larry Walker's deserving, but is this guy not deserving? And also the game has changed. The game, one of the things that bothers me is that these people, especially sports writers who, if you've been a sports writer 15, 20 years, you've seen the change of the game.
Right.
There was such and while the game changes every year, there was such a huge change in the game from like the mid 70s to like the early 90s. The game changed, how they use relievers, how position players, that everything has changed, and now pitchers don't bat anymore. It's just it's ridiculous. For certain positions, Gold Gloves mean the world. Oh, that guy's a 250 hitter, but man, he had 16 Gold Gloves.
Yeah, well, explain this to me, Hector. How the game is shifting, and everyone is talking about offense, yet the 300 hitter is an extinct animal. It's an endangered species.
Well, listen, I think you'll still have more 300 hitters than you'll have pitchers who have complete games in a season. Find me a guy who throws 9 innings now.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Well, yeah, I think that some of these milestones are going to start to. That's why you kind of have to judge era by era, right? So, like, for example, if the 300 batting average, the lifetime 300 batting average isn't what it used to be, right?
Okay.
How do you judge some of these players and stuff like that? I'm not so much so I wanted to get into each of the people who were enshrined today, and you brought up Todd Helton. You brought up the Larry Walker. I don't know if you just threw that out there as a comparison sake. I'm more of a fan of Larry Walker getting in than I am Todd Helton.
Well, they're both Rockies, so that's why they came to mind, because they were both Rockies.
No, I think it's a fair comparison. They were two of the perennial best hitters in their individual eras. They could always they were always in the hunt for the batting title.
Basically, listen, I am not a McGuire or Sosa or Bonds guy, but how do you shun the guys that saved your sport when their home run chase brought fans back to the park? It's so frustrating. The Hall of Fame is so frustrating, and every year I just sit there and go, wow, okay, this guy, huh? This guy got in, huh? So
Fred McGirt finally got in, though. It took the Veterans Committee to get him in.
Listen, I had a good year last year. I got Gil Hodges got in. He got in as a as a manager. I think he got in as a manager, but he was a respectable player at first base.
Yeah.
And I got Jim Cott finally in the Hall of Fame. That made me happy. And Tony Oliva. I mean, so I got some guys in the Hall of Fame that I've been big fans of. But listen, I'm just one small voice out there to a Hall of Fame that doesn't give a shit just what we think, and that's the end of it. And thank God, that's why there's blogs and Facebook pages for you to argue with these idiots who are who think who are just as smart as you, but we know they're not, so.
It's true. So Todd Helton doesn't make the cut for you, and I'm with that too. And you know what? It seems for all,
he's
he
a
always
great
seems
player.
He seems like a great player, and seems like a great person too. That's also the worst of it.
He's a great player, but it's not the Hall of Great.
Yeah.
So and that's the thing. Once you start letting Baines in, and what are you going to do? I put together, since I'm retired now. I'm quasi-retired. Baseball Hall of Fame. So I started to put a little list together of my own should be in the Hall of Fame, and Edgar Martinez gets in the Hall of Fame as the first DH, but there were DH was used differently back in the early years of the DH. And one thought I had earlier that I think that you interjected with something and I lost it. guys arguing about defense only. Defense doesn't matter unless, of course, you're a shortstop or a center fielder or a second baseman or a catcher. But first baseman and third baseman and right fielders, left fielders, corner players, they have to be power hitters. That's why I'm not carrying a torch for Mattingly because I'm not a Yankee fan. I mean, if they abolish the organization tomorrow, I think we would both have a beer. But you got to give credit where credit due. He was probably the best player in baseball for several years before he started to, and with bad Yankee teams, not good Yankee teams.
Yeah, that's the problem. He played on badly Yankees. And then Dale Murphy too.
And Dale Murphy too. And then Hernandez, who I know Hernandez hits close to home, but Hernandez, he has 11 consecutive Gold Gloves. The guy doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame. All right, so he snorted a little powder. Who has it nowadays? He got a little Tudorutsky, as the guy said. All right, so and he testified that he's not deserving of the Hall of Fame. Get out of here. Anyway, let's not bore everybody who's watching already with the baseball stuff. But
that's okay. Well, like I said, I wanted to get into it. So again, we don't have to go to long additional analysis on it. So where are you on Mauer? Like, yes?
Oh yeah, listen, I am. Even though I have a little problem with him going in as a catcher, since he played more games at first. But Mauer is a class. There's nothing. I don't see any negatives. Mauer belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Okay.
But when you say Mauer belongs in the Hall of Fame, I can tell you, Joe Torre belongs in the Hall of Fame as a player.
I agree.
It's a guy who's triple, won the MVP one year. But anyway, yes, Mauer. I got no problem with Mauer.
All right, you mentioned Joe Torre, so you got in as a manager. What about this year's manager, Jim Leyland?
Listen, Jim Leyland has a special place in the hearts of South Florida baseball fans, even though they shouldn't have that team in a place in their hearts because of what the management has done to the fans. But Leyland being the manager of that Marlins World Series team was great. He looks like he's a stand-up guy. How many times did you not feel sorry for him when the Braves broke their heart when he was at Pittsburgh? I mean,
yeah.
Listen, there's a whole bunch of managers belonging in the Hall of Fame. He's in now. That's great. Maybe Dick Williams will get in the Hall of Fame. Maybe Billy Martin will get in the Hall of Fame.
A lot of people rooting for Billy. Okay, so and then Beltre, and then
Beltre was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
I mean, and just imagine had he not lost those 2 years to that operation. He had some kind of medical issue. He got hurt with the Dodgers. He was his appendix. I forgot what it was. He missed like a year. He missed a year, and then he had a couple of bad years after that. And then
he went and played in Seattle, and then he rejuvenated his career in Boston. Had a career year in Boston.
Then went to Texas.
He played for the Sox, and then went to Texas, and that's when it became it. But
I mean, listen, for the longest time, don't lie.
Yeah, for the longest time, his first half of his career, he was a half season player. That was his reputation.
Yeah. And it's funny that he's one of those guys that he got better as he got older. It's like I always say Dwight Evans is that guy as well. Dwight Evans was a better player later in his career than early in his career. But I mean, that's just my opinion.
And then the last one that got in this year. No, we already talked about him. Never mind. Okay, great. That's all, everybody. So now we can stop boring everybody. Yeah, tonight we can start smoking cigars. Speaking of cigars, I've got a couple here. And I haven't lit up yet, so I thought I'd give you the opportunity to pick my cigar for the night. That has become a tradition here. Well, I've got the this is a cigar I think you would approve of. So this is the Knuckle Sandwich Chef's Edition from.
Oh, that's the Chef Special from the first year. That's the first year Chef Special.
Yes, sir.
So that's a couple of years old there.
Yeah, and then I've got the Habano Toro. This is actually special as well. This was actually from the first year's release as well.
Oh, okay.
This has got some age to it as well. I've got an Oscuro Robusto Knuckle Sandwich.
Oh,
but just so you don't think that I'm just playing like all Knuckle Sandwich here, I did bust out something that is very, very special.
You got
No. I went straight. We're going straight.
Oh, straight fire. You went straight fire.
Got the Warhead number 9 here. So
I think you should start with the mildest. I'd always start with the mildest cigar. So I would start with the Chef Special, and then work your way to the Habano, and then the 2 Maduros. You can pretty much flip flop the Maduros any order you want them in.
Sounds good. All right. Well, I'm excited about this. Um, I'm excited to see what the age has done to it too, because I really enjoyed this release when it first came out, and I wanted to set some aside for aging. So this is really good. Gosh, it's wonderful, wonderful aroma on it.
I'm glad you like it. I think you'll enjoy it.
All right. So, are you smoking this evening? I know you're indoors.
I've been under the weather for about a week, so I haven't been smoking. So and I'm still not 100%. So I'm gonna pass today. Hopefully you're not offended.
Not at all.
But
Not at all. Hope you feel better. But thanks for
no,
joining.
it's been every time I come back from Nicaragua, I'm a little torn up. I don't I don't know what it is. You know, I give such kudos to guys like Skip and James that live there, you know, and I come back and I am just fucking
Swiped.
shot. I'm just like somebody kick me in the nads the whole flight back. And it used to take me a day to recover. Now it takes me almost a week to recover, you know?
Well, as I was telling you in the green room, revenge is a dish best served cold. Because now I know exactly what you guys feel like. I drag everybody onto the show at Sunday nights, knowing full well most of you travel Monday mornings, and I get to do that tomorrow. So I got to turn around, and I'm flying to Atlanta for my day job. So,
Oh,
uh, but uh, but I'm excited to excited to be in the New York of the South for this week, and I'm going to be again lighting this cigar up with my DuPont Fluo lighter.
fancy.
Appropriate too because it's we got the orange footband and got the little orange label on this. But man, I'm really excited about this topic, and it's interesting. I actually you had asked me, and I was as I said, I was pretty candid with with my audience. I wanted to ask you on the show because a series of questions that we had with Sebastian and Brian of Cavalier Cigars. And it got me thinking when I invited you on here that there was kind of a topic that I want to go down to, which was blending cigars for other folks. But we'll kind of get into that as we kind of go into our major point, which is always brought to you by Gran Habano Cigars. From the fertile lands of Honduras, George Rico and his family have put together the very best vintages for you, the cigar smoker. From value-based hits like the Corojo Number 5 to the award-winning 20th anniversary to special projects like Zulu Zulu, Gran Habano is about cultivating the best and making pinnacle cigars for the market. Culture, tradition, quality, premium handcrafted Gran Habano cigars. So I kind of teased it already, Hector, but so I've said this enough times. I know you've heard it. You're probably sick of hearing it, but whatever your blending style tends to be, you've cracked. I mean, I'm not the only one, but you've definitely cracked the code on my palate. There's something about the way that you blend a cigar, that 98% of the time really blends favorably to my palate. But you have the challenge of blending cigars for a lot of different folks. You started up blending for Eric and everything, but there's other brands that are under the Espinosa La Zona purview and everything. So, when you first started this is kind of where I wanted to start tonight's questions. When you first started this and started blending, did you look at it that way, like this? These are this projects, or these are this projects, or did you just go in and say, I've got to blend the very best cigar possible with what I got? Like, what was the
All right,
mentality?
so you got to understand. I wish I had that romantic story that I could tell you that I was weaned at my grandfather's knee as he sat there and drank, mojitos, looking upon our manzanas of tobacco. That's not the case. I've smoked cigars for a long time. Smoked cigars since I was very young. I've liked the cigar industry. I've always kind of been cigar, you know, close to the cigar industry without actually being in the cigar industry. I never knew that I would end up in the cigar industry, and being cigar adjacent. I mean, I did a couple of cigar events in the police department for charity. Uh, Everybody kind of, by the time I went to go work for Eric, nobody was surprised because you wouldn't be hard pressed to see me with a cigar in my pocket. I was that guy.
Mhm.
So when I go work for Eric, and it's a and all the accolades really belong to him at first because he kind of let you do that. he likes to smoke cigars, but Eric is he has his palate. He knows what he wants. And I think I got the opportunity when I went the first time that he kind of saw that I really dug this part of the business. A lot of guys don't like this part of the business, the being in the factory, on the factory floor, going out to the farms, going out to the tobacco, to buy tobacco, going out to look at tobacco. And a lot of guys don't like that. I mean, and I'm not saying that he didn't, but he really saw that I liked that. And at that time, it was just him, me, and his son. There was three of us. He needed to concentrate on establishing the company. Uh, that was fresh off of the separation between him and his partner. So when I got there, when we worked on that first blend, it was all right. This is what he likes. This cigar. He likes this cigar. And I kept track of that. This is the cigar that he likes. So he likes a certain spice level. He likes a certain body. He likes a certain flavor profile. So my first couple of projects were that, not trying to reinvent the wheel, because we wanted to make cigars that tasted different. Every one of them tasted different, but it had to be a cigar that he liked, because it was a small company. It's his company.
Mm-hmm.
So and I've said this before, I'm not a huge Habano guy. I mean, I know the Espinosa Habano is one of your favorites, and but I mean, if you were to ask me to judge between 4 or 5 Habanos, I'm really not the guy, because at the end of the day, I would much rather smoke a Sumatra over
I'm
all.
so glad that you hit on this point.
I would so much
I'm
rather.
no, you've said it, and I to me, like you've said it to me kind of like in passing for the last few years. I'm like, maybe he's just burnt out, And you're right. I do love the Espinosa Habano, and I didn't mean to cut you off, Hector, but
No, it's okay.
I'm glad you landed on this, because I really wanted to talk about this tonight, and I was like, maybe he's burnt out on it, and that it'd be totally understandable. You guys put out some of the best, if not the best, Habanos on the market, in my opinion. If you don't like it, how do you do it so well? This is the question I've wanted to ask you.
Well,
If you don't like it, how are you able to blend it so
but
well?
maybe to say I don't like it is not fair. Listen, I still smoke. I smoke Habano, at least one Habano a day. But like you were just saying there, when we first started, we had a Maduro and a Habano. We didn't have Connecticut wrapper. And if you talk about you like the Habanos that we've come out with, and that I don't like Habano yet, we managed to blend some pretty good Habanos. How do you answer? What's your answer for the crema? That I never smoked Connecticut wrap cigars,
Right.
never. And it was crema, it was Themis, and it was the one I did for Cornelius and Anthony. I thought they were all fantastic. But getting back to your thing, I think it's just we did so much Habano at the beginning, so much that I just got sick of it. I've gotten sick of it. But to keep answering your question from before, I had an idea of what he liked. I had like a little key. When in doubt, go here. When in doubt, go there. And remember, when we started Lazona, we didn't have a vast selection of tobacco. When you look in the cabinet, when you look in the chest back there was salt, pepper, and allspice, or Italian seasoning. There wasn't a lot. There was no turmeric or juniper. We didn't have anything cool back there. We were just making with what we could get our hands on. So it was that. And working, I remember we didn't make a cigar for anybody for the first year or two. After I think on the second or third year is when La Huala and our Mendoza showed up, and they're in the books. And then Protocol showed up, and Cornelius and Anthony. And Cornelius and Anthony was great, because they said, "Hey, we want you to make a cigar with this burley that we grow."
Right.
And and I got a chance to do a cigar with burley. I mean, and their cigars were doing very well. And I can't blame the guy for walking away when he got offered, when he sold his cigarette company, and he got a nice 9-figure deal. I would have hauled ass too. I would have left everything in the office. I get it. So it kind of left us at there. And, so what we've been pretty much doing for the last couple of years is there's still a cigar or two we'll make for somebody, but we've pretty much been doing stuff for, stores. And I like doing store exclusives, even though doing store exclusives can be counterintuitive. It can be bad for business, but I enjoy doing a store exclusive, especially if it helps bring us into a shop and it helps strengthen our position there. So I think I don't even know we segued a little bit. I hope I answered your
Yeah.
initial question.
No, absolutely. No, I'm just glad you stumbled upon it because that was one of the hitting points that I wanted to hit on was because I think and you kind of led into the other part too, which is like I know you don't like Connecticut, but yet, you know, you made my number one cigar of the year, the Crema. You made a top 10 cigar for me in the Knuckle Sandwich, Connecticut. The
And
Themis is
Habano
Themis
and
is
the
one of my
Habano.
favorites, and the Habano, yo. No, I was talking about your use of Connecticut, but yes,
Oh
like,
yeah,
yeah,
too.
no,
So
yo. I mean, it goes without saying, Hector. I think that, like, again, you were talking about when you started with Eric, and you kind of had the key or the whatever.
I know what particular tobaccos he really enjoys,
I
but
guess
there
maybe
come
Eric and I have the same too. Like,
but then eventually down the road it comes to a point where you have to start making other tobacco. You got to make
true,
cigars that are different,
right?
and sometimes you have to make cigars that you don't like. I've made plenty of cigars that have done well for other people, and I didn't like them. But that's the job is not, it's not, hey, make me a cigar you like. That's why when I start a conversation with anybody and they said, hey, let's try to make a cigar together. I said, well, what are you looking for? Give me a cigar that you've smoked. That's the kind of profile that you're looking for. Because either I've smoked it already or I will go out and smoke it and get an idea of what you want and then try to help you with that.
Hmm.
In some instances, it's really easy. I want you to make me the strongest cigar you can make. I want, so
Hence
then
the mistress comes out. Yeah, I got it.
no, not just that. I mean, the ones for protocol, I tried to kill them. I tried to make a cigar that would kill them. It's really, poorly Harrows or really super high primed Diesel. It was almost the Harrow. I mean, I tried to kill these guys with this, and there really wasn't that much. There wasn't a lot of rocket science to that. But it's gotten a lot better. I'm enjoying it because the move to start working with AJ really helped us as a company because it helped diversify our portfolio. The stuff that we did with the six provinces, we could have never done that at Lizona because of the availability factor.
Hmm.
Knuckle Sandwich, all the different knuckle sandwiches that we've released in the last 3 years, and uh, I got to tell you, we can't make enough of those limiteds.
Right.
Every time we make a limited, I mean, this year we did that limited chef special that they came in and they're gone. There was not an extra box lying around. There was not the, hey, well, we've always got a few. No, those things sold at the show. I mean, that's because we have the ability to go dark Sumatra broadly. Well, now we're doing a Pennsylvania broadly for this latest knuckle sandwich release. We have that ability now that we didn't have before.
Yeah, I think that I mean, as Eric's so fond of saying, it's about the ingredients and stuff. And so
Absolutely.
when
Listen,
your pantry expanded, I mean, the world was your oyster. If we could just keep mixing metaphors.
and I gotta tell you, I mean, listen, I know that he makes a lot of his factories make a lot of cigars for people, and he's responsible for a lot of their blends. But anybody who's smoked our cigars know that our cigars taste like our cigars, and I think that's a testament to our ability to make the cigar that we want to make wherever we want to make it.
I
So
think that kind of goes into it because everyone talks about the signature, right? The signature that that you have, the Espinosa signature. AJ has his own signature. Steve Saka, James Brown, you mentioned him earlier too.
sure, absolutely,
There's fingerprints that are easily identifiable, and every so often you find a cigar, you smoke a cigar from one of y'all, and it's like, okay, that's different. Like that
yeah.
doesn't taste like a quote unquote Hector cigar, quote unquote whatever, insert here. But I think that's a good thing. I think that the signature is a really good thing. And to your point, I think what's really remarkable is the the AJ signature seems to saturate a lot of the market because a lot of people use his factories.
Sure, absolutely.
But I I think you're spot on, and that's just we're friends, Hector, and you're in front of me right now. But that your cigars don't taste like AJ, they taste like Hector and Eric. Like it's the Espinosa Hector Alfonso signature, and I
Well,
think
listen,
that's key.
they're not going to, we don't want to make a cigar that tastes, I mean, when you say the Espinosa cigar, right, I think I understand what you're saying. It has something that you go, okay, I get that. This is there. This is from them. I can feel that, and that's pretty much what you're doing. How can we make this different without letting people forget who his daddy is, that it's an Espinosa cigar. So that's the whole thought process.
Yeah, I think I think in a lot of ways it's important too. I mean, Perdomo has that as well too, and that's why that his contingent of fans, myself included, is they know what they get out of it. The same thing of with a Knuckle Sandwich or an Espinosa. I still smoke Espinosa Habano multiple times a week, Crema multiple times a week, because I know exactly what I'm getting with those cigars, and they were my number one cigars for a reason.
Listen,
But
there's a comfort factor in that. There's a
yeah,
comfort factor in that. That's why, when I grab, when I want to smoke something that's not mine and I grab it, unless I'm in that mode where I'm trying to just sample new things that come into the shop. But when I want something, when I want to fall back, I just want like that warm sweater or something like that. When I grab a Padron or I grab a Blackworks or a Roma or a Sobremesa, a Dunbarton, I know what I'm getting. I know the moment I pull, I'm just I can just smoke.
right.
I'm not tuned in to, oh, what am I trying to taste here? What's in this? I don't care. Let me enjoy this and smoke it.
Well, I want to go back to that. It's funny 'cause I don't want to jump around too much, but I do want to. That was a good point, and there was something I wanted to reach on with that, which we'll come back to. I want to put a pin in that for a second. I want to go back to the burley that you talked about. So okay, so you're chugging along. You're making these cigars. They're doing great and everything. Cornelius Anthony comes in and says, "Hey, here's something that the cigar industry turns its nose up at. Put it in a cigar, Hector. Figure it out." Like,
Well, that it was very cool. Let me tell you, first of all, you have to know them. I mean, Stephen Bailey is a gentleman. He really is. He's a
oh
gentleman.
yeah, first class.
Nice Southern Virginia man. But we weren't the first to use Burley. I know there were some cigars back in the 80s or late 70s that used Burley, but it had been a long time. And I think what made it special in this instance was that it was Burley that he was growing. It was his own Burley
Mhm.
that he grew, sent to the Dominican for processing, and then sent to us to work with. So not knowing anything about Burley, just knowing that it's pretty much used in cigarettes and in pipe. When it arrives, I happen to be in Nicaragua a week after it arrives, and when I get there, there's just my hands are not the right size, but I mean, I gotta back up. It's 2.5 feet long. It's got this golden honey color. And the guys who I'm working with in Nicaragua, being Cuban at heart and having worked in Cuba during the Castro years there in the cigar industry and learning how to pilfer and steal to make ends meet on the sides, he looked at me and he says, if we had this tobacco in Cuba, we would have made 4 cigars from one side. I mean, from just one of the leaves. That's how damn. So, so what I had to do at first was smoke a lot of burley. I smoked a lot of little tabaquilla, little cigars rolled in burley, and I got to tell you, it had some potency to it, and it's really smoky. So, I said, let's just start with a basic, we're going to use it as binder. So we grabbed an Espinosa blend and did the Espinosa blend over, and that didn't quite work. So it took maybe 8 blends, 7 or 8 blends to get the first burley cigar down,
Right.
and maybe another 3 or 4 for the Connecticut with burley. And I'm trying to think what was the other one. The Gent was a really good
I
cigar.
I was about to comment on the gent because you talked about the smokiness of the tobacco.
It was a
And
really good cigar.
it really brought back this memory. I did this Instagram post with the gent years ago, and it was like one of those boomerangs, like where it just repeats over and over again. But I mean that the screen is just filled with smoke, and I haven't even exhaled yet. Like it's just coming off
It
the
was
cigar and from my last puff, and it's just, it's like I'm in the quintessential smoke filled room, and it was just like off of one cigar, and I was by myself too. Like there was nobody else around me when I took
so
a
I,
hit.
I remember that Stephen liked the gent, and we went forward with the gent, and it was box pressed, and it was an interesting cigar.
Yeah,
But
it
I
was.
remember Eric telling me I don't like it. But then, funny as luck would have it, the gent had a better year than anything we came out with that year. They had a better year in the end of the year awards thing. I mean, it's just how it is, you know. And then the mistress was just disrespectfully strong for just no apparent reason. It was just a disrespectful cigar. It's like, hey, this is I remember a couple guys we make the strongest cigar in the market. I'm like, well, here, hold my beer for a second. I think I'm gonna. There are a lot of guys that I gave it to who smoke strong cigars who just said, bro, I can't smoke this. I can't. This is just
it
too much. I
it
can't
was an
smoke it.
experience. It
I
was an
mean,
experience.
if you remember, it left Seth pale. It left Seth. Seth had meat sweats that, and like he had the meat sweats at 10:30 in the morning, but only he would smoke that cigar first thing in the morning. I mean, I don't know if he's trying to punch his own man card or something. I don't know what he was doing, but that cigar was just too intense, too strong to smoke so early in the morning. But so yeah, that was the adventure with Burley, and sadly it ended when Cornelius ended.
So that kind of begs the question too. So like when you're creating these blends, again, are you able? I think I might be onto something here where it might be it's probably easier for you than most. And this is some of the questions that I was asking Sebastian Bryan the other night when we had him on an interview. They're doing stuff out of their own factory now, and for all intents and purposes, Lizona is home for you, right? Lizona is home for you, and
More or less.
San Lotano is home for you, where AJ has set you up. Again, you kind of you're able to experiment and do your thing, and it's home. So it's the same concept, but I might be onto something here for you to be able to detach yourself and make it not personal, because like when you create a blend for somebody, doesn't matter who, and it gets rejected from the person you're making it for. Or maybe you make a stellar blend, you're like, this is fantastic, this is awesome. And you give it to somebody else that's not necessarily Espinosa. Like, are you able to detach pretty easily because,
Sure.
it's
Listen,
been
I
the way
I
you've done
I,
things?
I learned early in this. I learned early in my career that everybody's palate's different. And privately among and listen, the guys who I really circle my wagons around are the guys who do what I do. The guys who make cigars and blend cigars. I tend to kind of go to them. Those are the guys that I hang out with, and then when I see them, I like spending time with them. And listen, they're not only does everybody have a different palate, there are a lot of bad palates out there. There really are. If the guy came to you to make a cigar and you make a cigar that you don't like, and that's the one he wants to make, you make it. And if you make a cigar that's fantastic and he doesn't like it, you just hold on to that for another project, which has been the case many times. I
Or
made this
even
for that.
tweaks, right? Or even tweaks
No,
off of
no,
variations.
perfect. Yeah, but this is great. Well, I don't like it. It's not strong enough or it's too strong. Okay, fine. Let me write this down because when it's time to go back to the drawing board, I'm going to go right back here. That's it's I don't have that problem anymore. I think because maybe of the tenure already that we have as a company and the cigars that we've put out over the last, 10 years, even though we're going on 13, but I mean, we really started to come into our own after our first year. I don't get a lot of that. When the guy asked me my opinion, I'll give it to him. I said, listen, I prefer this cigar to that cigar. It's harder doing it at my place,
Right.
because I have a palate. Eric's palate's different. And Jack has a different palate. Richie has a different palate. Junior has a different palate. So it's too many chefs can spoil the soup as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I narrow. I used to come back with 5, 6 samples of this. No, I come back with 2 now, 2, 3 at the most if it's something really special, and I lay them out. This is the I like this one better, but you should try this one first.
But
I we don't have time to jack to fool around. We're trying to not nowadays. We're so busy now. It's just we don't have time to dilly dally. What were you going to say, Bear? I'm sorry.
no, yeah, I mean, you mentioned kind of the executive leadership and Espinosa. You and Eric have different palettes. You've mentioned that. Eric's even talked about that too.
Yeah.
Jack, is self-admitted is a more lighter bodied smoker, which doesn't necessarily always fit into the Espinosa
But
core. But
but he'll fool you. He'll like he loves this year's chef special. He loves this year's chef special. It's broadleaf. He hates broadleaf, but he goes, I love this year's chef special.
interesting.
It's funny. It's really funny.
Yeah, I think the only person's palette that I don't know as intimately is probably Richie, but I think his is probably. Is it fair to say that his? I mean, apart from yourself, probably is more well. He's probably one of the more well-rounded. He doesn't stick to necessarily one lane. He kind of.
No, he smokes everything. He
Yeah.
smokes everything. And remember, Richie worked for Caldwell and he worked for PDR,
Hmm.
so he smoked a lot of Nicaragua, a lot of Dominican tobacco. He was
Right.
smoking a lot of Dominican cigars. So it's and I don't smoke outside of Floyd. And now that John's gone, I might not smoke that anymore. No. But I mean, outside of Florida, there's not really a lot of Dominicans I smoke. I don't smoke a lot of Dominican cigars. I like a Cuevas every once in a while, and I like Sejas a cigar, but I don't smoke a lot of Dominicans per se. So Richie's been around, and he worked in a retail store, so but he doesn't like those super strong cigars like maybe I would say I do, those high spice, fuller bodied cigars. He doesn't like that.
I think I recall one of my very first interviews with you, Hector. We were joking around. It was in the moment, and I know we were poking fun at one of our favorite people to make fun of. We love him so much, but we were talking about Juan, of course, protocol, and we talked a little bit early on about your process. And you kind of I remember the quote du jour was smoke, shut up and smoke this.
No, pretty
Uh,
much.
and
That's pretty much still the go to.
And I mean, him and Kevin, and when they started out with Bill, I think all three of them have a tremendous amount and have been very quick always to say how much trust and faith they have in you. Um, but does that does that prove challenging as well? Because it's kind of more blank, blank
Well,
canvas a little bit.
anything we can't sell is challenging. Oh, but you're talking about the cigar part. Yeah, because listen, they're trying to expand their portfolio as well. And he wants to use this and he wants to use that. But we've tried to explain to him, listen, it's hard for us to get it. We're trying to make stuff for us with this material. It's hard for us to get it for our own personal use and for our own personal production. But I think he's understood, and I know that they've gone through some stuff over there, and they're trying to get back in the game. They have another release coming out that I'm going to work on for them. It's hard. Listen, I really don't like wind bling blowing up my kip. I don't, because it's you tend to get lazy when I can just throw something together and tell him it's good and he'll take it, which is how a lot of these little factories work that way. Oh, I'm telling you it's good. Oh, you want to make a cigar that they like. I think I know. I've had the luck, or maybe this the lack of luck to know who I'm making a cigar for, where their flavor profile is, or where they're especially remember I go through this with them. What are you looking for? Because when I present them with a cigar and if they hem or haw a little bit, I say, wait a minute, you told me you wanted this. Well, yeah, but at the moment, but now this is not where, and I say this all the time, cigar blending, especially when we're doing it, we're not doing it in person. We're doing it point to point. I'm there, I come back, I do some stuff, I send it to you. We're not in the drive-through line at Wendy's, where if you ordered a number two, when you got to the window, you could change your mind and order a number one. That's not how that works, And every delay, every time that we're playing sample tag, we're delaying a cigar and delaying a cigar and delaying the cigar. And that's on you. You're the one who wants to launch a cigar at a certain time. So work with me. But I've been very lucky. The latest person we made a cigar for was Balck Star Line. And I gotta tell you, that was the smoothest launch we've ever done. I could
Including
expound on that.
Espinosa, like including
No, no, not at all. Our stuff's, I mean, that's the smoothest
you're talking about other
cigar I've
brands.
made for anybody else.
Gotcha.
I mean, when people have their shit squared away, and maybe you could read between the lines here. When people have your shit squared away, things will work out. Things will work out.
It's a
Bands were bands were done, art was done, concept was done, communication was there. Uh, told me exactly what he was looking for. Gave him the cigars to sample. He selected the ones he wanted. He wanted a little bit of a change here. We did it. He was okay. I want this size done, made, shipped before they were expected. That is how it should always be.
Mhm.
How it should always be.
I was really excited to talk about this project because he broke we had the exclusive on his announcement of it, and when he told me who was making it, I first of all I didn't expect him to answer,
Hmm.
but because I was like, oh, are you working with another factory? He's like, I'm working with another factory. I said, okay, who are you working with? And when he said you, man, I mean, my professionalism side of you, I mean, you have to understand the joy that came through because
And I know he has a particular style, and it was our first time working together. And listen, I get where I appreciate it because he's organic. He doesn't seem to be a guy who's blowing wind up your ass. He knows what he wants to do. He knows what he's looking for, and he wants to be involved in the process, legitimately involved in the process, not like some guys who say they have a cigar and have never set foot in Nicaragua. Only, the only time they'll come to Nicaragua for 2 days so they can take pictures in the tobacco field. That's not this guy. This guy knows what he's talking about. This guy gave me the cigars that he was making at other places, at Summit factories that I'm very fond of. And I said, okay, I can play with these guys. I mean, reputation aside, no disrespect, because there's a lot of great and talented guys in the cigar industry, and a lot of them that I consider my friends. But I'm I don't think we have ever taken a backseat to anybody making a cigar. So he was very happy with it. And then not only that, I told him the whole Lazona machine is going to get behind you, which means us and then our fan base. So I
yeah,
mean, he was very happy with the cigar. From what Richie was telling me, because Richie was the point man mostly because of their relationship from before, it couldn't have gone any better. And that's how everything. And I want to base any future endeavor that we do with anybody else. I want to use the Balck Star Line model, where everything was done, emails were answered, phone calls were made, a Zoom was held, samples were done correctly. You know, uh, that's the way it should always be. You know.
that's awesome. Well,
So,
I'm great though that ran so smoothly. Now the next part is I just need to get my hands on some, so that'll that'll have to be the next thing. But yeah, I'm really excited about that project. So there are a few more questions I wanted to ask around this topic, Hector, and I know we've kind of stayed one dimensional tonight, but that was kind of my purpose. I've had you on the show a few times over the years, and we've talked about your story and it's a wonderful story. I love it. I'm glad we revisited some of it too. But this particular topic is of interest to me, and I think you more so than a lot of people can speak to it in a lot of different ways. And I think you've kind of laid perspective on that tonight too. So we'll come back to that here and take a break. With everybody's favorite segment, the United Presidential Trivia segment, which is always brought to you by United Cigars, featuring La Giana Havana, distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, the Firecracker, and the highly anticipated and highly acclaimed Atabey, Byron, and now Alfonso lines from Selected Tobacco. Smoke one today and start living united. We talked about the Baseball Hall of Fame earlier, and as we were kind of breaking the ice at the top of the show, Hector. But I mean, today is also history for another reason, and I think, you know, given the segment, how could we not talk about it? So try to keeping politics out of it, but history was made today, an unprecedented turning of the tide in the upcoming presidential election in November. Incumbent President Joseph Biden steps out of the race post-primary, which now leads us to the convention. Will now decide, the Democratic National Convention, which will be held later next month, will now decide the candidate. He has endorsed his vice president, Kamala Harris, to seek election against the Republican nominee, former President Donald Trump. So while his stepping down this late is unprecedented, it's not unprecedented for the conventions to actually pick their candidate. In fact, this is how it was done for a majority of our country's history. That's how Lincoln came out as the Republican candidate in 1860. It's how Warren G. Harding, who the hell knew Warren G. Harding at the time, but he was emerged as the candidate, and the Republican Party still regrets that to this day, because he was a terrible candidate, somehow still won election, and he was a horrible president. But nonetheless, this is how it was done up until, at least historically speaking, fairly recently. So that's the question for tonight. Hector, when was the last election voted on by candidates from a convention and not through primary elections as we know it today?
1952.
Okay, well, that's not a choice. This is multiple choice. So, so not 1952.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Because and the reason I know that is that I heard it today on ABC, not because I knew it. But I'm sorry. I didn't mean to step all over your ass.
Well, yes, 1952. So but some interesting dates in history. So 1968 was the last time that one candidate from a party was selected at the convention. That was Hubert Humphrey. That came out of, well, once Johnson decided not to run. So
not to run.
Yeah. So, but I think it's fairly interesting how the primary elections came to be, which is really, really interesting. Again, you know, a lot of time the country didn't know who they were voting on until these national conventions. They had good ideas, especially as media and press became more prominent. You know, especially in the latter half of the 1800s to early part of the 20th century, we were able to, you know, because of newspapers and media and everything like that, we were able to see like, oh, who's the favorite, things like that. But the official candidate really wasn't known by the layman in today's day and age, before the conventions, which is kind of mind blowing if you think about it, because conventions are a couple of months before the actual general election, and you're thinking, I don't even know who I'm voting for.
I think the whole delegate thing just makes me scratch my head. But you know, listen, it's it's what we've been doing for 200 years or whatever, 150 years of delegates since the Lincoln thing. Go ahead. I'm sorry for you.
Well, no, I was just going to ask this. I mean, not to dance too politically, Hector, and I'm not asking you to go one side or the other, but do you think one system's better than the other? Do you think the way that we've been doing things with primaries and caucuses is more the quote unquote American way, or do you think the conventions, which were done for years?
I like the primaries. I do. I like the primaries. You thin out the herd once, you know, and because listen, at the beginning you always have 6-7 candidates. Mm-hmm. Then, you know, by Super Tuesday, you know, that's you've only got the ones who are really going to be, you know, who mean something. I think I like the primaries. I like the caucuses. I like the presidents or the candidates traveling state to state stumping. I like that. Mm-hmm. You know, that's me. The convention just looks like a huge boondoggle for people in the party. I mean, that's just what, if you ask me, that's what it looks like.
No, absolutely. No, I think so. And I've been thinking about this question all day today, and I was because I'm the historian, right? From the historical perspective, it's kind of, there's something fun about not necessarily knowing who it is. Historically speaking, it's like, oh yeah, this candidate just came out of nowhere. The quote unquote smoke filled room. That was the quote around Warren G. Harding's nomination, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I find interesting, and this is what I was talking to a couple of people today about this too, about with Kamala Harris, is the reason why Kamala Harris makes sense for the Democratic Party is she's the only candidate. She's the only person in the Democratic Party who's actually been vetted by the press. She's been in the limelight for 4 years now. She went through a presidential election as a vice presidential candidate already. So the world knows her, like her, hate her, whatever, it doesn't matter. But the world knows her. If they bring in somebody else in the 11th hour to try and make this a competitive election, that's what they're going to have to battle, because you don't know, everyone's got skeletons, man. You don't know what's going to pop out of the closet if you bring in some relatively speaking unknown. They're not going to bring in some crazy dark horse that nobody's ever heard of at this point. But even if you bring in somebody who's relatively known, they haven't gone through the process that Harris has gone through. So
Well,
they're kind of between a rock and the hard place here.
I'm a registered Republican, but I've voted. I've gone across the aisle vote. I voted for Clinton twice on a bill. I've voted Democrat, and I find it hard to believe that the Democratic National Party, the DNC, did not have a contingency plan in place after the first debate with President Biden and President Trump. And if they didn't, they should be ashamed of themselves.
Yeah.
Also, secondly, this is, and not to get political, I mean, I find this to be just, as I'm getting older and looking at the last 30 years of my life or 25 years of my life, I don't want to, I don't even look at the news anymore because it just frustrates me and gives me more anxiety. But, President Biden taking 3 weeks to decide not to run, can't help the party try to find somebody that can help swing this country back to the middle a little bit, because I think it's the polarity of each other's opposition that is just destroying us. It's and I worry for my kids and I worry for my grandkids that I remember as a young man growing up that Democrats and Republicans didn't hate each other. They didn't agree with each other, but they didn't hate each other.
Right.
I've heard stories of Reagan calling Tip O'Neill over in the middle of the night to have a nip, and now, no, now they're the enemy. And that's, and whoever they decide, if they decide to go with Vice President Harris, or they're still going to have to vet a vice president. So they're going to have to find somebody to be her running mate if that's who the party's going to take. And listen, one of her biggest obstacles is not going to be, even though Trump will be a huge obstacle for her, her biggest obstacle will be separating herself from this thing with Biden.
Right.
How long does she know that maybe he wasn't capable? How long, and I don't pay attention to any, ever since Quayle, I never pay attention. Well, no, Cheney, you always had to be careful with Cheney because he was the vice president, he was shooting people, but you don't really pay attention to the vice president. I think in the West Wing, there was a great line in the West Wing about, I thought vice presidents is where your political career comes to end. I forgot if that's, I gotta ask Joe or John tomorrow the exact quote on that. I mean, nuclear reactor ribbon cuttings and it's that's what vice presidents do. But in this day and age where there's always an open mic and an open camera, anything that she may have said that was unflattering is going to be revealed in the next couple of weeks, and this is going to be tough.
Yeah.
You kind of I miss the Clinton days. I really do. I miss Bubba. If the worst thing is he was fucking somebody in the Oval Office, as long as it wasn't my sister, I don't care. I didn't care. So.
Well, you bring about a good point about them being, they didn't hate each other. Bill Clinton and George Herbert Walker Bush were friends.
Yes, absolutely.
And they became, very best friends after the election, after Clinton wiped the floor with them. And I think that, the age-old adage of you don't make them like they used to applies to almost anything, and that goes for presidential candidates as well. And as as this segment always brings up, I have a love for presidential trivia. I have a love for the executive branch because it's showcased the some of the most unbelievable characters in our history. And we, in a very short period of time, we might get to say men and women, if Harris is victorious. So I love that even in 2024 there is still potential for history to be made. There's still potential for unprecedentedness. So from an academic perspective, this has been incredibly fascinating. Now, as a citizen, as an American and a father, it's a little terrifying.
Absolutely.
to your point, but
and we grew up during the Cold War, for Christ's sakes. This is ridiculous. This is nothing. Listen, the beauty of all of this, Bear, is that we work in an industry where where so many in our industry are political pundits, and will be out there explaining this in better detail tomorrow.
That's great.
That's always great.
I'm glad they're there.
I'm looking for that guy in that group to tell me exactly, this is all fine and good, but where's that money? Where's the Biden money going? Does the DNC get that? Jesus Christ, it's just, can't we just, just please, you're killing me. You're killing me.
Well,
so anyway,
it's funny that you mentioned the industry, and this is the last point I'll make before we go back to your career. Is I find it very interesting and almost yet baffling that our industry is a beautiful example of how differing opinions can work. There's a couple of sour apples. There's a couple of people that don't really like each other, and you're going to have that in any group.
That happens everywhere.
But for an overall big picture, again, it's a small world, but there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of people. Everybody knows everybody. And for a healthy majority of it, most people have respect for one another, and a lot of people are friends across I know you've talked about James. I know you've talked about Skip, and I know you've talked about Willie, with great admiration and appreciation for them. And they're competitors. I mean, call it what you want, but they're competitors, but there's a respect level there, and that works and can.
Listen, you would be surprised if you knew the level that companies help each other out at. I'm sure you might know because you are in the industry, but constantly contact, hey man, do you know anybody in Texas? I need a guy in Texas. Can you help me out? Yeah, I think I got a guy in Texas. Can you help me out with this account? I can't get into the store. This happens all the time. All the time. And I think that's possibly one of the nicest things, or one of the things that I look at our company and go, wow, this is really cool. That is a really nice touch about our industry. Not everybody helps everybody. Don't get me wrong. There's some guys in this industry that you wouldn't pee if their mouth. You wouldn't pee in their mouth if they were on fire. If they were dry, if they were. I'm sorry, bro. That's not the one. You wouldn't pee on them if they were on fire. They're just awful, just awful people. There are guys in this industry who can't, have a bad case of diarrhea of the mouth. I invented this, I invented that. I did this, I did that. He stole from me. You're a fool if you don't believe in this. And these guys, what are you going to do? What are you going to do with these guys? So in my case, I've always for the guys who, opinionated or not, it's not who they are. I don't want to sit and have a cigar with a guy that I only see once every 3 months and have to listen to a diatribe about politics or religion,
sure,
or whatever. And those are the guys I like to hang out with. But
yeah,
but there are guys who live for this, man. There are guys who live to argue these and form these contrived arguments. And that's not me. There are guys who, oh, who am I gonna beat up today online? Who am I gonna? I live in this chat room and I'm just gonna destroy that. It's so stupid. It really is. But yes, this is getting back to what you're saying. This is a great industry, and they help each other a lot. This
Right.
industry,
Yeah, and
and
I think that
there's a lot of admiration in this industry among guys. There's royalty in our industry.
right. No,
Royalty.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think there's some confusion in the chat. Coop and a couple of other folks are chiming in about the politics of the politics that we're talking about inside of the cigar industry. And that's not necessarily
Sure.
what I'm talking about. Politics are nasty right now. And that's universal. That's inside the industry, outside the industry, inside salons, cigar shops. It doesn't matter. It's just it's a shit show and a minefield that you want to go. But I meant overall as an industry, like we call it the great equalizer, right? People come together about differing things all the
Sure.
time. So
Because very rarely do you have a guy who's only worked in one place.
mhm.
You have so many guys who've worked in 3 or 4 different locations, and they know this guy and they know that guy, and he was fired, but we're all good, and it's
Nobody gets fired.
weird.
Nobody gets fired
Yeah,
in the cigar industry, Hector.
no, it's let's
Except for Jack Tarano, who's admitted it, and Sam
and
Lucia. Yeah, those are
right,
those are the only two guys that
right.
got fired.
Listen, I mean, it's I laugh sometimes because I wonder if people had baseball cards for the guys in the cigar industry, could you imagine how small the writing would be on the back of this baseball
Oh
card
my gosh, yeah.
for a guy who's been in 17 different places in 12 years? But
That's what it's
this
what I,
is this is the industry we've chosen, so we have
mhm.
to,
This is the business we've chosen. Yeah.
this is and there's no statue anywhere around here for any of us, so it's just that's what it is.
That's what I love about Eric's story, and that's probably why he's so well respected and why he's found so much success. Is he literally started from the ground up in this industry.
Three
He
times he started from the ground up.
yeah.
Three
Yeah.
times.
So and it's a story worth note, and that's probably why he's found so much. I mean, it is why he's found so much success too, and he pairs
There
himself with
is
great people too.
there is a sincere quality, an earnest quality to his story, and let's just face it, he's got, I don't know what it is, but he has it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen, I mean, this is a guy who he comes into my office and tells me, what we got to do. I don't remember that. How do you not remember that? We talked about it 2 days ago. However, he can go into a shop that he hasn't been in 7 months and remember the clerk's name and the clerk's wife's name, and that they bought a new Chevy Malibu. Consumers, hey, wait a minute, last time you were here, you were wearing this kind of T-shirt. That's beautiful mind shit. I
Yeah,
mean, that's I can't. I don't know how he does it, but he connects with people. People, and I don't want to call it shtick because maybe that's not the right word to say, and that might be I have a not negative connotation. But when he works a room, he works a room.
it's very magnetic. It's very magnetic.
Very few guys work a room like him, man. Very
Yeah.
few guys.
Well, I still love it, man. I fell victim to his infamous trick.
Oh, the card trick.
No. I guess I can guess your cell phone passcode.
Oh yeah, you got
Yeah,
tore up. Yeah,
yeah.
that's a
I
two
got.
man. That's a two team. That's a 2-man
Yeah,
operation.
man. Him. Yeah.
Yeah.
They double teamed me for sure, and Eric played it perfectly. I mean, I figured it out, of course, after the fact. When I was thinking about it, but it literally kept me up that night. I was like, how did he do that? And then, and sure enough, it was yeah, it was just fantastic. I won't spoil it because I think it's a great trick for any other shop that he's in. I hope someone else can fall for it, so I don't feel so silly. But it's fun. He makes it fun. He makes every interaction fun, and he makes it part of who he is, and he makes it part of his story, and it's really great. And I think that's why him and like, again, he's able to work with great folks, and he's brought in like this great team. We've mentioned Richie, we've mentioned Jack, and over the years, and then obviously working with you and stuff. So getting back, so I wanted to go back to this part in the conversation. You touched on it, and I cut you off at the very beginning of our conversation. We were talking because I was like, I want to hit on the Sabano thing, but you started to go down this road of Sumatra and working with Sumatra. And I know the Espinosa Sumatra is not your first foray into it, but I mean, when you're I mean, this is a core line. You're getting ready to launch it and everything like that. What I mean, that was that something that genuinely excited you because you're like now I'm working with a different rapper and I mean
Well,
what kind of
remember
went
we
into
had
that?
done well. We wanted to make another core line out of Lozona. All right, we wanted to do something new out of Lozona. So Sumatra is not new in our portfolio. We had used Sumatra and Azulejo.
Hmm.
Uh, we use Sumatra in the Knuckle Sandwich Maduro. So I mean, it's we've used Sumatra before. Uh, so I wanted to make a signature kind of Lozona cigar with obviously with a different shade of Habano, where the Azulejo Sumatra is rosado, and the one on the Knuckle Sandwich is Maduro is a dark one, Oscuro. I went with a lighter, more of a claro, and we just wanted to make something different. So, and it's going to be different. Not only is it going to be different because the wrapper is going to taste different, it's a cigar made in a different factory. I have a firm belief that factories like tobacco have their own distinct profile.
Hmm.
So we wanted to make something that was very Lazona-esque in the sense that it was clean and has a nice spice note. And the only thing I regret about that cigar is that we released it in January because it had been up to had we thought about it, we probably would have waited several more months because it was a cold January this year. So there was some, we had some issues, not a lot. We had a couple of guys who were smoking the cigar in upstate New York or, up in in Buffalo or Massachusetts. And oh, look, man, well, yeah, it's don't smoke outside. I mean, bring that inside. But, outside of that, the cigar's done really well. It was the first new thing we've done at Lazone in a while. And, I just want it to be different. I want you to grab all three of our Sumatras and notice that they all taste different. I want you to grab both the two Connecticut's that we make and notice that they both taste different.
Hmm.
That's the trick now. That's the task. To make sure it's that you like it and if I don't like it personally because maybe it's not for me, it's for somebody else, that it's well received and that's why you went forward with it.
I think we have to touch on something that I think is, and we have to talk about it because I think it's a phenomenon that while we're 3 years into it, it doesn't appear to be going anywhere. And it's probably one of the most powerful things to happen in the cigar industry in the last 10 years. I mean, I think it has the potential of being the story of the decade. And that's the partnership with Guy Fieri. You talk about the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon is the running joke in Hollywood and everything. But you're one connection away or you're one degree away from arguably the hottest, most notable, most popular celebrity of the last 25 years. I mean, this guy spans industries even within the small industry of Hollywood. I mean, the only thing he hasn't touched yet is film, so to speak. And he gets his star on the Walk of Fame and I love the quote. He's like, now I'm going to go make, when athletes get asked this when they win the championship, well, I'm going to go to Disney World. His Disney World was, I'm going to create a cigar.
Now I'm going to make a cigar. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're not only are you very much, not only are you a part of it, Hector, I mean, you're literally blending these cigars along with Eric and him. And, I mean, I don't take you as the overly emotional type, and that might be completely wrong of me to kind of judge you as long as I've known you there, Hector. But man, it has to have been a whirlwind for you, and not only for you but for the company as well. I mean, what Knuckle Sandwich has done to not just Espinosa but the industry. I mean, it's been a takeover, and you're in the thick of it. I mean,
Well, I can tell you this, emotionally speaking, I am when it comes to my kids and and personal achievements, I can get choked up and stuff like that. So I'm not cold hearted or stone hearted or whatever.
and I'm sorry, I
So
didn't mean
that's
to. I
just
didn't
no
mean
no
to.
no no. I wanted you to know because how
Okay,
would you know? You
yeah.
wouldn't but When my son graduated the police academy, I was so full of pride and holding back the tears that I couldn't put the badge on him. That's how, when he graduated basic training. I mean, when my girls graduated high school, when Abigail graduates college next month. I mean, or next fall, whatever, this fall. I get choked up for those things. When I retired at my retirement party, I couldn't speak. There's a picture that's online somewhere where when you get 30 years or whatever, you go get you meet the director and you get an award or whatever. I'd met the director a dozen times, but so when they call your name up and you shake his hand and he whispers in your ear, you know, "Oh, you're a legend." You're not, what the fuck do you do? You just so yeah, I have those moments. But getting to the question at hand about Guy Fieri, listen, there's a lot of there's a lot of concern, and I'll tell you what it is. Uh, we never had a concern that the cigar would not sell. We know the cigar would sell on his just based on his notoriety and his popularity. The concern was that the cigar had to be so good that it had to be taken seriously, that if it wasn't a Guy Fieri cigar, it would be successful. That was the concern. Because not at no time during this did we want people to think that this was a novelty. The cigar had to be good. The cigar had to be good. The cigar had to be made right. The cigar had to have the right flavor. And we had to, we had to make a cigar that was special, that was an Espinosa type cigar, but different enough that, obviously Guy enjoyed it and that he could get behind and would get behind, and he has, as you can tell.
Mm-hmm.
So while everybody's like, "Oh, this is great, and we're going to do this," and the T-shirts and the knuckle sandwich, and the thought is this has to be a home run. This cigar has to be a home run. So while Guy and Eric, are going through their dance, they're getting to know each other. And Guy knows who I am, obviously. I mean, I've met him a dozen times, and we're cordial. We're not boys. I mean, that's not my place. And my character. That's not really what I'm about. I work for Eric. And him and Eric are friends, and him and Jack have become very good friends, and he loves Junior. So for me, it was, while you guys are getting to know each other and tell stories, I'm plying him with cigars. I'm just putting cigars in his mouth, taking notes. And do you like that? Do you not like this? Do you like this? Do you like that? So I had a template. So when we were done, I could put together some blends for him that I know were going to be good, that I knew were going to be special, that they couldn't, not at any time in my thought process did it come to mind that I can just make a pedestrian cigar, slap a superstar's name on it, and it was going to sell.
Mm-hmm.
It can't be. It had to be a cigar that had to have its own merit. That it had, we called it the Bear Duplessis cigar, it would have been just as highly anticipated, just as highly rated, just as well liked. And I think that's the biggest accolade that I could take from the whole Guy Fieri thing, even now, 3 years later, is that we have not made a single cigar in that line that you could say, every cigar in that line has been good, because they have to be good. Because there's a little more pressure when you're a celebrity, make a celebrity in a company who's working with a celebrity to make a cigar, that you're just not, getting by. You're really going out there and pushing the envelope to make a cigar that's special each and every time. Each and every one of those chef specials have been special. His birthday cigar was special. The first Habano landed on so many top 25 lists that year. Sadly, so did the Maduro. So they kind of cannibalized each other. But that's how well that cigar did. And sales wise, we're a small company, man. Even today, I still consider us small. We're small when it comes across, when you look at all companies, we're a larger boutique company, but we're still small. We don't make 10 million cigars a year, which is where I draw the line at small and medium. And that cigar did so well for us. And that cigar, Jack and me are sitting in the office. So the game plan is we're going to pre-sell these things. Now, to pre-sell a cigar, you have to have a little bit of notoriety. You got to be somebody. You just can't, any Tom, Dick, and Harry can't come off the street and pre-sell a cigar.
Mm.
We pre-sold that cigar. After 3 days, we looked at each other and we went, well, we can't take any more pre-order. We can't. Because this is really the largest order of cigars we've ever made. I mean, ever made. And we sold thousands of boxes of this pre-ordered cigar unseen, sight unseen. And unless you lived in Dade or Broward County and you were one of the 9 or 10 shops that Eric and Guy went to in those 2 days, you had not tried the cigar, Bear.
Mm-hmm.
The only guys who tried that cigar were myself, were Eric, was Jack, Junior, Guy, and Richie. That's it. Nobody had tried that cigar. And we're sitting there going, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000. It was ridiculous. Ridiculous. And there he was. And when he said he has followed through on everything he said he was going to do. I'm going to support the brand. I'm going to do this. He wears a t-shirt online. He wears a t-shirt on his TV shows. He puts Twitter and Instagram ablaze when he's at the All-Star game a couple years ago with his knuckle sandwich cigar in his mouth. Mm-hmm. Listen, there have been a lot. Everybody, how every year we talk about this is the year of Connecticut or this is the year of broadleaf. This is the year of the celebrity cigar. How many guys tried to launch celebrity cigars this year?
Yeah,
and they're not all going to take off like him. This guy has got it like I don't know what.
None of them, Hector. None of them. Because all of them follow the same model that has been broken for years with celebrity cigars. That's the thing. How are they not taking notes about this? That's the question.
But they don't have his celebrity.
True.
Listen,
that's true. That's true.
They don't have his celebrity. But listen, I'm a big fan of retired ball players. I love sports. I know you love sports too. We're big fans of retired ball players. But when a ball player gets around to putting a cigar, he's been out of the league 5 or 6 years. It's unless the cigar's going to do well where he played or where he went to college or where he lives. But it's not the same. Your wife might not know, or your girlfriend might not know this ball player or that ball player. She knows who Guy Fieri is.
Yeah.
And she's going to tell you, you know what? You should go try that cigar. And while you're there, see if you can get a t-shirt signed from it. And that's what's happened.
Right.
And that's what's happened. And that's why it was so important that the cigar wasn't a gimmick, that it wasn't a novelty. It was a good cigar. It was one of the best cigars I've ever made. Just the Maduro, I think, is one of the best cigars I've ever made. The Habano is as Habano as I can make anything. Peppery and but it's badass, and he loved it, and that's one of those things that I won't forget when I retire and when I walk away from the industry in 5 years or whatever, and say, well, you know what, I did that first one, I did that was me.
It's interesting that you mentioned about pressure, and far be it from me to compare. And I apologize for even bringing this up in a comparative playing field, because it's really not. But you brought up the term pressure, and I think that's interesting, because I think he puts everybody on that high alert, whether you want to be or not. When Eric decided to partner with him, he knew the same thing that you're talking about. When he talked to you about it, you knew that you had to. You're always. I think. Everyone in Espinosa always puts their best foot forward, but this had to exceed that. This had to really, like you said, it took it to a different level of perfection, if to over romanticize it. And I want to take this opportunity to really thank Eric and Jack in particular. Jack was able to get the coalition in for a very brief interview with Eric and Guy. And
he was very impressed with your interview. He made many comments about. I remember I wasn't there because I was going through my own thing, but he made several comments after the fact of how well prepared you were and how concise it was. There are a lot of guys who get up there and he gives them a couple minutes and then oh, my dog's dying, man. Could it's crazy. You should, the stuff that happens to him. I Everybody says I wish I was a celebrity until you see what a celebrity goes through.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, I don't know if you remember a couple years ago when he first came to the show, my son flew in. My son flew in with his body man on the floor just in case. And he came back and he goes, man, this guy can't take 5 steps.
Yeah.
This guy takes 5 steps and, can you sign my boob? Can you sign this? Can you sign that? Can you sign my t-shirt? Can I take a picture? It's crazy. It really is.
I can't imagine him walk. I mean, listen, I mean, look, we're talking about degrees of separation here, but but I want to come back to the brief interview, not to toot any horns here, but I want to come back to what you were talking about, the level of the challenge, so to speak. But like you're absolutely right, and I think that's a really interesting kind of point, because his celebrity is so far above anything. I mean, again, he's arguably the biggest celebrity in the last 25 years, and I mean, I would take.
I mean, without a sex tape, yeah, sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Without a sex tape, yeah.
But to your point about not being able to take a step, I mean, I've walked the floor with Matt Booth, who's coincidentally enough is a buddy of his too. But I mean, I remember this was really funny. A couple years ago at the show, and he's like, "Hey," I was like, "Hey, we're gonna do an interview with you." He's like, "Yeah, sure. Can I go to the restroom?" He's like, "Actually, you better come with me." And I thought it was a Matt Booth joke, right? Like, come with me to the bathroom. But he's like, "No, man. If I don't go with somebody, I'll never come back." And I mean, he's like, "I have a secret route and everything." We went behind booths, and we still got stopped, half a dozen times. And that's Matt Booth, and
Of course it is.
And in the in the cigar world, he is a celebrity too. But I mean, like you said, 5 steps. I mean, that's probably shortchanging a bit. It was probably one or
5,
two.
7 steps. He couldn't walk. He couldn't walk anywhere.
Yeah, it's crazy. To get back to the brief interview, and Jack and a lot of the team gave me some very high praise, and it was very humbling. Guy himself gave me some high praise, and that was very humbling experience as well too. But I knew going into that, and you mentioned the word concise, because all joking aside, concise isn't something I do very well. Hence the jokes about my show's length and stuff like that. So I mean, I
I've always said, why say 7 words when 1,000 will do? I mean,
something I should put on a t-shirt for sure. But that was the challenge I took, and I knew that I had to deliver, because I essentially made a promise to Jack. I said, "Hey man, just give me 2 minutes. That's all I need." And I ended up taking 4, and I felt bad about that. But guy asked me questions, so I didn't feel too bad.
Once they start asking you questions, the timer's off.
The timer's off. Yeah, but it was a really cool moment, and I think what I think it really cast a spotlight on, in a very concise way, was an insight into his and Eric's relationship, and guys' interpretation of the industry. Because like we've heard his, what you've kind of talked about as well. We've heard his dedication to what he's doing, but I don't think the world had seen that in too much of a regard. I mean, they've seen it in the sense that he's been around, he's doing these things and everything, but I don't want to say that, I don't want to be so bold and say I was the first, but I think what that video showed is just how much he loves it. And that was the beautiful thing.
He does enjoy the cigar industry. He does. And I think and the more he's exposed to it, especially at the level of going to the show and dealing with retailers, the better understanding he'll get. Because, listen, he's also in the liquor business.
Mm-hmm.
But the liquor business and the cigar industry are 2 different things. I mean, completely 2 different things. But we've tried to explain to him and, tell him how things are in our industry. Ours is, we have a very unique industry. Mm-hmm. So far, it's been fun. We have, look, he he's understood. He's asked questions, and we've been luckily, able to answer his questions about any concerns about the industry and how things are done and why they're done in this particular order. Uh, he's not one of these guys who thinks he can fix everything. He just wants to, he wants to try to get us to work together, with his system, his way of doing things and our way of doing things, and then try to incorporate them in this industry that, is kind of it's a little, it can be a little hectic, it can be a pain in the ass, But so far we have no complaints, and I don't think he has any complaints as well. His cigar is doing well. His relationship with Eric has really it's really blossomed into one of those man things that you're like, wow, uh, they're they really get along, and they feed off each other, and you would think that he's known Eric 10 or 15 years, but he digs Eric. Eric's a man of his word, and I think he likes that. He likes the fact that we're working on our basic word.
It's a proven partnership so far, and we're really excited to see where it continues in the future. So with that, we'll get into our remaining questions of the evening here, Hector. And again, I can't thank you enough for sitting down with me on a Sunday evening, as always. And
no problem.
As always, I appreciate your friendship and over the years, and it's a real and beautiful thing, and I greatly appreciate it. And you, along with a lot of folks that are tuning in tonight, and a lot of people in this industry, we were talking about how tight this industry is. When I announced the passing of my father a little over a week ago, I got so many calls and so many texts I still haven't responded to, but I'll take this opportunity to do it once here, but I'll continue to do it over the next few weeks, because there's still a lot of outpouring of love and support. People that I barely know, and people that I know very intimately and closely, such as yourself, that extended their condolences and sympathies and a real sincerity to them as well. And that's what I really love about this industry is it really embodied one of my father's mantras throughout his life. He gave me one piece of advice when I got into sales, my post-collegiate career, because my dad was a career salesman, 50 years. And he said, son, that people, I get to say it colorfully. I usually have to edit it for the sake of an audience, but my father very colorfully said, people don't give a shit how much you know until they know how much you care. And very appropriately, the people of this industry, yourself included, Hector, proved that to me very much so over the last few days, showing me how much they care. And it's made this very difficult and hard time bearable. And I thank everybody, and yourself included. So thank you for the fond wishes, and my father will be dearly missed. So, but let's have a little fun. So this next segment is brought to you by our friends at Espinosa Cigars. It's the Everybody Eats segment. If you always make sure that your serving style is bigger than your appetite, everybody will always get theirs. Espinosa Cigars is more than just great cigars made by cool people. They embody an attitude of gratitude and grit. With Espinosa, everybody eats. So I thought this would be a fun segment to bring about, considering the topic that we just concluded with Mr. Guy Fieri. My question, I usually have a variance of questions here, but have you taken part in a meal with Guy Fieri at either one of his restaurants or one or
I have not.
Okay.
Remember, I don't do a lot of I don't do any of the Guy events. The Guy events are Eric and Jack, and I think Junior in a couple of instances. That's a next level event. And while I do some events throughout the year, my events are more a little smaller, more nerdy, not the type of events that draws the guy gets at his events where there's a line out the door. If there's a line out the door to see me, it's because they must have got a free pass to kick my ass or something like that. There's no there, so I don't get to spend a lot of that time with them. They just opened up a new guy restaurant here, and my daughter told me in one of the malls, one of these mall outlet places. So I may go. Problem is, I'm not a big foodie, man. For as guy as big as I am, and I'm 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 a simple guy. I'm a burgers and pizza and sub sandwich guy. I could live. I lived so many years on that when I worked on the department. That sitting down to a meal is like a real it's a special occasion. Oh, I'm not sitting in a restaurant. I've got an actual a napkin, not paper. It's cool. But no, I'm not a super foodie. But so I haven't really spent any time with him or gone to his places, but I intend to.
Well, it's funny you mentioned this because I was talking to someone about you the other day, and I was like, well, he's a former police officer, career police officer, former military, and he's also a father. And it was interesting. The question that came out of that conversation was like, man, has that man ever sat down to a hot meal in his life?
Never, man. You work late at night, and you fast food. You dine and dash. I mean, you not dine and dash. You grab and go. Dining and dashing is bad. So, yeah. Now that I'm retired, now when I retire for good, maybe I'll get to see the inside of some more restaurants. But I'm not. I'm just not a foodie, man. You want to talk food? Eric's a huge foodie. His
Oh
son's a
yeah.
foodie. Jack's a foodie. But yeah, listen, we've been to Vegas 9 times in the 13 years that we've been in the industry. The best time I ever had in Vegas was when we stayed at the Wynn because they had an incredible deli. I mean, they had an incredible deli. I mean, they had sandwiches that cats would have been proud of. It was fantastic, and that's what I like. I'm a simple guy.
There you go. All right. Well, that was our Everybody Eats segment sponsored by Pastania Cigars. We always make sure that your serving style is bigger than your appetite. Everybody will always get theirs. Pastania Cigars is more than just great cigars made by cool people. They embody an attitude of gratitude and grit with Pastania. Everybody Eats. Before we jump to the next subject, we talked about Eric Bay and the Balck Star Line and the Marron project that you worked on. But you had the opportunity to work on another project with Mike of Pastania Cigars, and that was the Bangarang. And it was, if I can recall correctly, and you might be able to know, and I know Mike would correct me if I was wrong here, but I think that was his first foray outside of
Outside of Roma, outside of
outside of
Nika
Nico
Sueña,
Sueño, yeah.
yeah.
Um and when he told me who he was working with, I mean, before I lit it, I knew I was gonna like it. And that cigar was fantastic. And um again, going back to our topic du jour of different people's palates and stuff like that, knowing Skip as well as you do and knowing the makeup of that factory, did that give you a quote unquote edge when you were working with Mike to blend a cigar for him? Or was that a challenge because, again, you knew what his palate was about?
Well, listen, no, it didn't give me an edge. I think, as a matter of fact, uh, with my relationship with Skip, the cigar had to be good. If not, I would have never heard the end of it. Uh, but it was very simple. These guys knew what they wanted. They knew what they wanted. It was a very simple process. They know what they wanted. We made it for them. They dug it. And, they, when you've been dealing with these guys, obviously, since they're a sponsor of yours, they may be, you know, the TMZ of the cigar industry or whatever the hell we call them, or the insane clown posse of this. But when it comes to not knowing what they want, he always does.
Yeah.
I've never seen that guy once go, oh, I don't. He always knows what he wants to do, and I like that about him. I like them. I like both of the brothers. I've dealt with Mike Moore and sadly with Palmer. Oh, I'm sorry, National Sales Manager Palmer, who's also a great guy. But those guys know what they're doing. When they want
Yeah.
something, this is what I want. I want this. I want this. I want that. I want it round. I want it 6.5 by 48 or 6 by 48 if I'm not. Okay. Oh, this is good. I'm going to send you bands. Bands were sent. That actually was pretty simple too. But since we didn't put it in boxes, there wasn't a lot of didn't have that other component.
Right.
But working with them was simple too, because
Yeah.
they have their shit together.
They really
And
do.
if I would give a year of my life to get everybody that, everybody on the same page. Those two guys all had their shit together. It's so much easier. The stress level, it makes the stress level so it just makes it disappear when everybody's on the same page and they got their shit together.
I'm lucky to count Mike as a personal friend. We've become really close over the last couple of years, from my perspective at least. And I mean, just a very stand-up guy.
The Christmas card is a nice touch. I mean, it's the details with him. He's listen, I don't know if he reads a lot of self-help books or if he writes them, but the guy, I don't know, but the guy he's got an incredible energy, and if I was 20 years younger, I don't think I could hang with all the shit he's got going on in his head, and be a retailer and try to, launch a small brand and,
And he
and
does
still
wholesale
fly,
too. Yeah.
does wholesale, and he flies out to do events. He went to Tobaccology to do an event, and then he goes to Nicaragua to deal with Skip and go down there and do stuff with the factory. I mean, it's not easy. It's not easy to do that, and and still, and be a family man and a football coach, and and a baseball coach and a wrestling coach and all the stuff that he's involved in. It's very impressive.
Yeah, it's dizzying to say
But I
the
don't want to
least.
say anything else nice about him, because next thing you know, he'll take sound bits out of this and they'll be on his show.
That's true.
Me praising him.
Well, again, with my personal relationship aside, what some of the most fascinating conversations that I've been a part of at the infamous media compound, I look forward to every year now, with his brother Greg coming, and I cannot wait to sit down with Greg, because I usually have 3 or 4 questions for him, and he has such a very similar mindset to Mike, but different altogether at the same time, and his business acumen, coupled with his experience and his perspective and the way to see things from all different angles, is just uncanny. And it's some of the most enjoyable conversations I've been with, because I soak it up like a sponge, because I sit there and I'm just asking him question after question. I really need to get him on a show. Maybe I'll make that happen. But he's usually the guy that's not really in the limelight. But it's yeah, like you said, those 2 guys really run a well-oiled machine. They really have their shit together. And yes, they're a sponsor of mine.
Oh, and I forgot, and they run a podcast. They have a podcast,
yes.
and now they're media moguls. Now they got they've got the Cigar Hustler universe. These guys are, I'm telling you, they got it going on.
They're all over the place. So, all right. Well, that goes into our next segment, which is brought to you by Asylum Cigars. Refuge is more than just a physical place. It can be a state of mind. Life's greatest reflections can be found in our own personal asylum. Moments like these were made for Asylum Cigars. So light up an asylum and choose your refuge.
That's another guy. I saw him a couple times this year at different events. I really like him. Lazuka.
Yeah.
Lazuka's a good guy.
Tom's a good world guy. Class. So this and I know you've participated in this segment a couple of times, Hector, but the segment is about that kind of that moment of quiet refuge, that moment of silence where you're able to just enjoy the cigar, and can be a moment of anything. But I wanted to take it a step further with you, because again, it's your process, your livelihood, your job is blending cigars. And maybe you've had several moments, and we've mentioned a lot of your creations over the course of this evening, but I wanted to see if there was a moment when it was alone. You're sitting there blending and you're working with different tobaccos, and you kind of hit a eureka moment. I'm sure you've obviously had several of those over your career, but what's one that comes to mind?
Yeah.
That really kind of sticks out to you?
Let me see. I'm thinking, I really, we talked about this earlier. When the knuckle sandwiches arrived, when the samples of knuckle sandwich arrived, that really, that was a really special moment, especially with all the stress and pressure that I had put upon myself to make it. But I think, I'm just trying to, man, it would be so unfair. It's like asking you which of your aunts you love the most. I've had a lot of moments, but I haven't, those eureka moments when you're working with tobacco. That hasn't happened a lot. because remember, I'm not at the factory all year. I'm there 4 times a year, and you know that eureka moment happens usually weeks after the cigar's been blended for the first time. Not very rarely does it come off the table and you go, "Oh, this is it."
As
No,
paper, yeah.
it's come off the table and you've gone, "Okay, this has a chance." And that's the thing that, I mean, not to segue here, but that's the thing that I don't think a lot of the consumers realize, that if you're not in Nicaragua all the time, or you're not in the factory all the time, and you're down there working, you know, at a time, back and forth, you have to take, you're betting, you have to make a bet on on those blends that you made while you were there. Say that you made 10 or 15 while you were there, and you bring back 6 or 7 of them. Those 6 or 7 you're bringing back because, you got this inkling or this feeling. And I think, uh, I think of all those blends that we've done in the past. Maybe the one that I had that moment was the first six province, because the first six province is really special to the company
Yeah.
because of the way everybody had something to do with that cigar. I mean, from the concept to the fine tuning of the concept, to the box design, to the wording, to the art, to the cigar. And then, you know, think of the audacity that it takes for somebody living in this country to make a cigar based on another country's region. That's
Yeah.
that, and we did it. This is what, when I think of Havana, this is what I think of. And I think, you know, to add on to what your question was, to expound a little bit, I had so much enjoyment because I know what my parents went through when they left Cuba. So for us to do a cigar that kind of gave them a little FU, uh, that was probably the best moment for me. That's probably the best moment for me. Now, I mean, you've had a lot of guys on here who blend cigars. You had Sebastian. You were with Sebastian last week with Coop, and I've come to really like him. I like him a lot. Matola is one of my closest friends here in Miami, because he's a regular at Alan's shop. But when you get a chance to ask, maybe something you can do in your future interviews. You know what really is a great moment for us, for me personally, is when a guy in the industry comes back and tells you how good the cigar was. Not a guy that you hand a cigar to. Every time you hand a cigar, even I've done it. The guy's giving me an awful cigar. Oh man, this is really good. But when you give a guy a cigar, the guy gets it somewhere else, not from you, and he comes back to tell you how good that cigar was. That makes your moment.
Mm-hmm.
That makes my moment. And that, for me, that's happened a couple of times. The last time was Dion. I mean, Dion, who I respect his palate incredibly. He says, "This is the best cigar I've had at the show."
Oh shit.
Um, I mean, that's okay. That beats anybody's 95 or 96, or it does, because this is a guy
Yeah.
it's a guy who makes cigars, and
And
and, and
he's
there's so
renowned for his palate too.
and
That's
and there's such, I'm not saying that we're not honest in this industry, but sometimes you want to foster that friendship, and you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. It takes a real close friend that you can say, "I don't like this," you know but I think that I only know people who make good cigars, so the chances of getting a bad one are very low. But when another manufacturer tells me that he liked our cigar, and not only did he like it, he smoked it down to the nub, which is something we don't do in the industry. You've never see a guy in the industry smoke a cigar to the nub. When he gets a little bit under halfway, he tosses it and he grabs another one, because we have that flexibility. We have that ability. We have those cigars at our disposal. But that's the best cigar moment, when
yeah.
a guy in your position at another company comes to tell you, "Wow, this is really good."
Yeah, I think
And I've paid it forward. I've done it before too. I've gone and gone, "Man, this is really good." Are you serious? I'm serious. This is really good. I don't say it to everybody, because then it loses its the specialness of saying it.
yeah. Well, and like you said, it's subjective, but it's also objective to hear it from your colleagues, and
Yeah.
especially when you hear it from folks like that. You
And
don't get a
a cigar that's not in his wheelhouse. I mean,
ooh. Well,
because you look at what he makes and you look at what we make, and they're not similar,
no,
especially this particular cigar that he was talking about. So that's for me, that was, I listen, there are still guys who you know, I still have my fanboy moments. I had a fanboy moment last year, with Korea. I mean, you have these moments in the industry that, when you're feeling, man, I hate this, and you're biased, you already feel, that you're over it, and you're over this and you're over that. And then a guy that you admire, or a guy that was making cigars when you were when you were brand new in the department and going over to buy him at his place, tells you, when somebody introduces you to him and he goes, "Oh, I know who he is. I know who you are." I'm like, "What the fuck do you know who I am? You're this guy, and I'm this guy. You're roast beef, and I'm over here. I'm olive loaf. But and you should
I'm thinking
come.
about our jelly conversation from earlier, and that's just comical.
Yeah, and you should come by the place. Come by one day. I'm going to be back. Come by and we'll smoke some cigars. Here's my phone number. It's a restraining order waiting to happen, buddy. Okay, no problem. Give me that. Give me that. And that's what keeps me going in this industry. That there's still surprises. There's still
Yeah,
surprises. We still do things that that make a difference, and that's what makes it work.
awesome. Well, that leaves us just with one last question, Hector. That's our last question of the evening, which is always our last question of the evening, which is our Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust curveball segment. Fastballs or curveballs, it doesn't matter since the company's inception. Steve Saka has been knocking them out of the park. Count them up. 9
Just ask
consecutive
him.
years. 9 consecutive years. 9 consecutive years in the consensus top three. Good, congratulations to our good friend, Mr. Steve Saka.
Absolutely.
Now, Hector, one of the things that I've had this conversation with Coop a number of times on our show. One of the things I love a lot of things about our good friend Coop. But one of the things that's always most impressed me is not only his encyclopedic knowledge of cigars, and when I say cigars, not necessarily to the extent the way that you know cigars, but encyclopedic knowledge of cigars. It extends to music, sports, and not just baseball, but some random fucking sports too, including cycling, which is just hilarious.
Well, yeah,
But
that kind of freaks me out too.
but hockey and other, I mean, just other sport. It's incredible, and he jokes about golf, but even his knowledge of golf sometimes is actually pretty scary too. But all that being said, I consider Cooper a Renaissance man, but I also consider you too, because I think about this all the time, and you have this encyclopedic knowledge of baseball. That's been noted several times on shows that we've done together. I know you love football as well. Music, you also have an affinity for music.
Well,
And so I kind of wanted to ask this question. What is Hector Alfonso's most extensive library in your head? Is it cigar related? Is it baseball? Is it football? Is it music? Or is it something else that I've completely missed all these years? What's your thing?
wow, what's my thing? Oh, what's my thing? Listen, I love baseball. I love baseball, and I love football equally. But uh, it wow, that's a tough question, Bear. I'm going to be honest with you, because I'm not a noologist, and we know so many of those in our industry. I'm not a noologist. There are many times that I'll be quiet when people are talking. I don't have to one up them. I don't know. I'm trying to learn. But I've always considered myself somebody who's really, really big into alternative and new wave, and I can name that tune in four notes, but I think it's got to be baseball and football. It's got to be those two, because I'm I'm equally committed fan of both of my favorite teams. I mean, I could reach over here to my right and I have my baseball card collection. I have every starting pitcher from 1962. I have his baseball card from that year. I'm a huge fan of what I like. If I don't have any knowledge of it, it's because either I haven't learned it yet or I have no interest in it, which is weird. But I would think it's baseball, and I would think it's New York Mets baseball. And if it's football, it's Miami Dolphins football. That's the football I grew up with. That's the football I like, and I'm gonna be fan. I'm gonna be a fan of those two teams till they're. I'm not here anymore. I mean, let me just put it that way. That's the way I look at it. So I think it's baseball and football. It's those two, and they're equal. You guys only see my love for the Mets because we don't do football stuff. But my love for the Dolphins is just as deep, just as pure, and just as painful. Just as painful.
I, we talk a lot about baseball, and sometimes for the non-baseball fans in my audience, it kind of could probably get exhausting, and I do apologize for that. But we love what we love,
We do.
And what I absolutely love about our little cohorts of baseball, our baseball thread in the industry is, there are a lot of times when I'm in group discussions about baseball, and people will state an opinion or an erroneous fact, and it makes me cringe, it makes my eyes roll. But what I love about our little group of friends that we've come to have, and there's other people in the industry that aren't a part of this, but this, for our little microcosm that we have, and I've never done that, and there's never been a fact spewed or something shared where there's an eye roll or anything. It's, and that includes Rob and Coop's exhausting Kapler debate.
Oh my God.
That
I have a print screen of something that he said a year ago that I'm waiting for the right moment to drop it in the chat because I have never, I love him to death, and he knows that this has nothing to do with him, but he is the worst. If we had if they, I could not watch a game with him because I would end up strangling him during the game. He, I end up because he's just, oh my God, and I'll tell you what it is because I know he's watching. I have when Thompson didn't get votes for manager of the year, he said he was deserving of manager of the year. Yet he's called for his firing at least 10 times in the last year.
I was gonna say the last week, but
Yeah. But I guess, listen, who am I when it's Dolphin talk? I bitch about Tua, and so I get it. But man, they're the best team in baseball right now. Give the man a break. They've won 63 games. Give the man a break.
Yeah.
And listen, on that little chat, you better be on your game because my thought whenever I post anything there is that Loomis is standing by to fact check anything else.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, and you know what? That's what makes Aaron Aaron. That's what makes him the salty Aaron that is. But I know that if I
bullshit, man, I love it.
Yeah, he calls bullshit quick. And today he texted me to scold me on Scott because he took Scott after I told him I think Scott was going to be a great rookie. Of course, Scott came up before Skews came up, and then Skews has blown the dial off what a rookie pitcher should be like, and Scott's struggling. Scott's really struggling. So I know he called me just to kind of like, hey, I'm cutting your guy tomorrow. I mean, just so you know, just so you know. So yeah, if that's what listen, I'm in a chat with my son and his fantasy football guys who like baseball as well, and we do Immaculate Grid. And there's only one guy about my age. The rest are younger guys. So when you pull out a name that they'd never heard of, right away they want to call bullshit, and it's not until we did one in person that he's like, okay, yeah, man, listen, who wants to cheat on something that there's no, why are you cheating on something that there's no prize in this? It's just to help you guys out. As a matter of fact, I've offered to help you guys when we're doing this thing. So yeah, it's baseball. It's New York Mets baseball. It's Miami Dolphins football. That's, I don't think there's a lot of guys I could take a back seat to when it comes to just knowledge about my team. Yeah, I'm sure there are guys who live and eat Dolphin football and Mets baseball more than me, but I don't. I wouldn't shy away from a conversation with any of them.
I was gonna say I'd hate to meet him, but I would love to be part of that conversation just to see some exchanges, though. But yeah, all right, well, great. Well, Hector, once again, thank you so much for the opportunity to come back on my show, and it was great catching up with you as
No, my
always.
pleasure, man.
And to dive into this unique, segment of the industry, which is, not only making cigars for the brand that you work for, but making cigars for other brands too, and the complex nature of the business and everything. I think it's something that I was interested in diving more into, and I couldn't think of anyone else there was a finer example of it, and would give me some of the answers that I was looking for. So thank you so much for the opportunity, as always. Thanks to our audience, as always, for staying up late with us as usual, and for everyone out there, we do appreciate those likes, shares, and comments. Keep them coming. If you are on YouTube, check us out on our YouTube channel, ELOSOFUMAR. Don't forget to hit the subscribe and hit that bell so you can get those notifications as well. And if you are tuning on to us on Facebook Live, we do broadcast every Sunday, or almost every Sunday, at 9:30 Central on our Facebook Live page, ELOSOFUMAR. Hit the like button too. And if you are listening to us wherever you listen to podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, or wherever you listen to podcasts, tonight's broadcast is courtesy of Gran Habano Cigars. Honest, compassionate, great cigars. Be sure you download, subscribe, and review today. Don't forget the review, y'all. And I say I have this heartfelt message to the gentleman who left me a 1-star review. I'm not upset with you, but next time, tell me why I suck, because I can only get better, and constructive criticism is key. So if you're going to drop the 1-star review on me, at least tell me why you think I'm terrible and disappointing to you. That way I can improve on this whole process. But we are almost 300 episodes deep into it, so I think that we've got some things going right, at least more things right than more things wrong. But we're going to keep on going on the road to 300. Tonight's take was our 297th. And without further ado, he's Hector Alfonso of Espinosa Cigars, everybody. I'm Barry Duplessis, live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star Studio of Azle, Texas. Guess what, everybody? We'll see you next time.